Hi, I'm Jeff Gonzalez, president of Trident Concepts, and today I want to talk to you about drawing and shooting from a seated position. All right, so first of all, let's talk about seated positions. How often do we find ourselves sitting down? Well, if you were to think about all the activities that you do from a seated position, commuting to and from work or activities, sitting at work, sitting for meals, we probably spend a lot more time in this position than we might think. So let's talk a little bit about, well, what do I do should I have to draw from a seated position, right? And let's talk about the types of seated positions. So the first one, which is a little bit hard to do outside of a vehicle, is sitting inside of a vehicle. So I've got a couple of obstructions. I've got a steering wheel, I've got a restraint, a seat belt. Those are things that we'll have to work through, and we'll talk a little bit about that. I could be sitting at my desk in my workplace, so I might have a table with monitors and all sorts of other clutter right here. And then I could be seated in a restaurant dining environment. Now the thing that makes this one tough is that if I'm in a group, I'm going to have people directly across from me. So drawing with somebody that's in front of me is a tricky thing. So we'll talk a little bit about things that we can do to manage that. All right, so let's talk about some obstacles that we have to overcome. So I talked a little bit about the steering wheel, I talked about the seat belt. Those are all things in a vehicle that you have to deal with. Most of the time, if I'm in a vehicle, it's very rare that I'm going to be shooting through the front window. I'm going to probably be accosted at the driver's side door. And now that can happen in one of two conditions. Either the door's closed or the door's open. Regardless of the window condition, door open, door closed. Right? They have kind of like slightly different scenarios. If the door's open, I probably don't have to worry about my seatbelt because I'm either getting in or getting out. If the door's closed, now I have to worry about my seatbelt. So what are some things that I can worry about? Well, I may not be able to deactivate that seatbelt, but it's preventing me from getting to my gun. So if I'm carrying strong side, I can do something as simple as just taking my cover garment, grabbing my cover garment, and pulling it in front. My seatbelt is still going to go around, but it's not going to occlude my ability to get a firing grip. So I don't have to take my seatbelt off to actually get my gun out. All right, so that's one option that you can think about from inside of a vehicle. The other thing that we talk about inside of a vehicle is like, am I shooting through the door? Am I shooting through the window? Truthfully, you are going to have to probably take the situation and let it dictate how you react. Right? And that's a whole other video series that we can go in depth into. But for now, most likely you're going to be shooting from a lower position, meaning that you're going to probably be shooting at an upward angle to get to your target. That's a whole other video again. Now, let's talk about shooting from a seated position and where am I located and where is the target located. So if I'm in my workplace and I have an office, my door, I probably face my door. I mean, if you're like me, you don't want to put your back to that doorway, so you're going to be sitting down with a view of your door, right? Whether it's to the side, in the middle, or one other side, it's going to be in front of me to a certain scenario. So as I go and I make visual contact with a potential target that requires me to draw, I'm going to probably be drawing and shooting straight in front of me. Okay? Perfect. Easy. Awesome. That's not necessarily the scenario that we have to really do a lot of work on. The scenario that we have to do a lot of work on is drawing in a public restaurant in a dining scenario. Right? So we'll talk about where the most likely scenario would happen that I'm going to be confronted by a bad guy, and that's going to be right here along the side, similar to what I might see in a vehicle. Right? So they're probably not going to be on that side of the table or the booth. I mean, they could, but most likely they're going to be on this side, engaging with me, talking to me. With that being said, one of the most important things that you develop is a stealthy draw, like what I call a sneaky draw. So the key thing about a draw stroke is most draw strokes, whether I'm standing or seated, have a few telegraphing motions. One being both hands move together. So if I'm trying to do a sneaky draw, I probably need to post one hand where it doesn't move. Stays still. That will allow me to move the other hand in a sneaky way to get to the gun. Now here's another telegraphing thing that we don't want to do, which is move this shoulder any more than it has to. So a lot of times we'll see this shoulder rise as we try to get our gun. You cannot let that happen. So you got to post this hand, and then you got to move your other shoulder without lifting it up, which is a lot harder than it looks, right? Once I have that grip, the gun coming out needs to be done in a sneaky manner. Now I need to be careful of where my muzzle is pointed, which is why it's important that you understand what's in front of you, right? Because I'm more than likely going to have to cover that to get the gun over to my target. Now the other thing that we have to deal with is, do I get the gun up into a more sighted plane condition, or do I keep the gun concealed? Not necessarily concealed, but out of view, under the table. Maybe put a napkin on top of it, keep it in my lap, my hand's already on there, hands posted up here. So I look to be compliant, I look to be in a sense that's non-confrontational, but I have the gun ready to go, should that be the case. The next thing that we talk about is, what do I do when I want to go to full extension? Can I shoot from compressed ready? So when it comes time to shoot, can I shoot from this position? Absolutely, I can. Am I better fully extending? That all depends on the distance to the target, which is another reason why compressed ready has a lot of value, not just from a standing position, but from this position right here. Because if I extend the gun out, I'm not on my feet. I've got really no ability to retain this gun should he try to grab or block or parry. So keeping that gun tight against my body and going more with that compressed ready kind of exchange of rounds is probably going to be more realistic than you think. Now, the next question that we have to talk about is, do I try to shoot from the seated position, or do I try to exit and stand to engage, right? There are pros and cons to both of those. One of the things that I talk about for the pro is that when I stand, I have the ability to be mobile, all right? Maybe it's in my better interest to haul ass. Maybe I'll keep the gun kind of in a concealed condition, keep the napkin covering it, and I'll just get up and move to an exit. That's an option. Maybe I don't have that as an option. Maybe he's threatening me with deadly force, and he's given me no reason to believe that I'm going to walk out of here uninjured or alive. So one of the things that I talk about is having a cover for action. There has to be a reason for you to do something, right? So if he asks me to stand up, well, now I have the gun that's now going to be clearly visible. What do I do to try to create that or mitigate that? Furtive movement is always going to draw the attention of the bad guy. The eyes are going to move to movement. The eyes will be attracted to movement. So if I try to move quickly, that's going to draw his attention. So furtive movement is something to be avoided. Just kind of moving slowly, complying with whatever he's doing, but then all of a sudden being able to get two hands on the gun and go to full extension might be another option that you might want to consider, right? So when we're in a seated position, which we probably will be in a large percentage of our daily lives, we need to have some solutions to how I'm going to manage threats around me, right? Am I in my vehicle? Do I have to deal with the steering column, steering wheel? Do I have to deal with a seat belt? Do I have to deal with my cover garment? Am I in a restaurant? Do I have people across from me that I need to be concerned about? Can I work my sneaky draw? Can I get the gun out without telegraphing my actions? Do I go from compressed ready to full extension? Am I going to stay in a seated position or standing? These are all questions that are going to need answers that are probably going to be provided to you during that situation, which means that you're going to probably have to practice for all of them and then let the situation dictate. All right, I'm Jeff Gonzalez. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to post them down below. Until then, take care and stay safe.